Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 121 of your favourite Formula 1 show. Knowing Wheel is back this week out. We're back to a bit of normality, of course. We did an F1 Iceberg video last week, but today we return looking towards the antics for the Austrian GP in our second sprint weekend, or third? It is
the second one.
Second sprint weekend of the year. I'm joined, as always, by our good friend Jamie183, who apparently has gone back to 2022 tradition of moving house for each podcast.
Every week, yeah. So this is my final recording in this humble abode, and I'll be in a new place next week.
MTV Crib Tour,
and then I'll be in another new place about a month later, because I'm only in this new flat for a month. So fun time.
Well, I mean, as well, we have got very, very exciting news. At some point next month,
stay tuned.
Jamie and I are going to be doing a podcast together in the same room, live, which is going to be a disaster.
And we haven't seen each other in the same room in about 5 years.
I don't think we've ever been in the same room.
Well, technically it wasn't a room, it was outside.
Spa-Francorchamps. Yeah, we've never been in a room together. That's a really odd way to start the show.
That's a really weird way to start. Everyone's going to switch off now. But
I don't blame them.
Yeah, we're here to talk about Austria anyway, which is a sprint weekend.
We are, yes.
Should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course. The sprint weekend last year from Austria, it was a decent weekend, wasn't it? So it still seems like Formula 1 are very much trying to throw sprint weekends at different venues and seeing what sticks. But yeah, Austria last year, it was a decent weekend. I think kind of what seems to be a cementing factor of a decent sprint weekend is if a different driver wins the sprint to the actual Grand Prix. But then again, that happened in all of the ones in 2021, didn't it?
Yeah, it did it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it did.
Yeah.
Max
and Lewis, Bottas and Ricciardo, Verstappen and Lewis.
Yeah, wow. And 2023, obviously, so far. Did Perez win in Baku? I think Perez won the sprint in Baku.
Yep.
And then
he won both.
He also won the race, didn't he? Yeah.
Yep.
So, will we see different winners? Probably not, to be perfectly honest. But we shall see.
We'll get our predictions in later.
Yeah. Indeed, we will. But yeah, we obviously had Ferrari. Was it their most recent win last year? No, Sainz won the week after, didn't he? That's mental. To say they had a car capable of winning races often last year, that they won their last race of the season in July.
Well, it was the famous quote, wasn't it, from Mattia Binotto saying, I don't see any reason why we don't win every race in the second half of the year, and then they didn't win even Mercedes won a race. Mercedes have won a race more recently than Ferrari, which is still wild to think about.
Yes. But Charles Leclerc was the winner last year, which he obviously hasn't won since, so he'll be hoping to get back to it. But it has been a historic, very good track for Max Verstappen and Red Bull. Even in the non-Red Bull era, he was good at winning races here.
Yes, that also being said, though, the track design did suit their old car philosophy, didn't it?
Yeah.
Now it feels a lot more like the current Red Bull is a bit more like the dominant Mercedes. I mean, they're both dominant cars, but of course, very, very good top-end speed. But I guess the real big thing always, isn't it, the Red Bull Ring, is the high altitude.
Yeah, it's pretty high. Not as high as Mexico, but I think it's second, isn't it?
It's second, overall.
Track I've been to,
as Brazil.
Which is good.
Both of us have been to.
Yeah. You almost saw Jolyon Palmer score a point.
I did. He came 11th again.
I saw Max Verstappen overtake Charles Leclerc in a very unfair way, but got away with it, so we move. And then, didn't get on the track because we had a friend crying about Ferrari losing the race. So that was fun times. But less about that and more about 2023. And we, of course, have the sprint race. So we got same as Baku format. We got a qualifying session on Friday, a sprint race Saturday morning.
No, it's a qualifying session Friday, a qualifying session Saturday, a sprint race, and then the real race Sunday.
Yeah, which I think we discussed it at Baku. I prefer this format to the old one, just because the sprints are completely separated from the Grand Prix, which means people actually will risk things in the sprint race if they're battling for 7th, 8th, 9th, for instance, just because
if it's George Russell and Max Verstappen,
you've got nothing to lose because it doesn't affect your grid position. So I think it's a good thing. But yeah, any more news? I guess we can go over that real quick. From the week, we only recorded a few days ago, but there is a little bit to go over, including Hollywood's very own Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhaney have bought a stake in Alpine, which it was a bit out of nowhere. Didn't really see it coming. But yeah, they've obviously got an investment group which famously own Wrexham Football Club. And now they
Go
own
on, I'll let you have your rant. I'll let you have your rant.
I'm not even gonna. I just support a team that were in the same division as Wrexham, and they absolutely bankrolled it last year and won the league only by a couple of points. But there was another team with them. But yeah,
what was the gap between second and third?
So Wrexham finished on 106. Notts County were on 103, which both of them broke the previous record for the most points. And then third place was 30 points behind. So in a football terms, that's like 30 points would usually separate about 10 or 12
Well,
teams.
that's like winning a Formula 1 World Championship by 250 points,
250
isn't it? Yeah.
Points. Yeah. Yeah, which is quite ridiculous. But yeah, they basically ruined the National League. So, but obviously in F1, they can't just bankroll it because everyone's got 140 million pounds or dollars, sorry. So we shall see if it makes a difference. I don't know why Alpine need the investment, but I guess if someone comes along who's going to get a lot of PR, you might as well.
This is what I couldn't work out with it, because at the end of the day, we still seem to be asking this question, aren't we? Are Alpine a factory team or not? Like, what's going on?
They're just really weird, aren't they?
They're so bizarre. I feel like we say this every other week at the moment, but it's such a weird organisation in the way it's structured. You know, the fact of the matter is, that team should be winning races. Every other engine supplier in Formula 1 can win races, or has won a race in the last 12 months, apart from Alpine.
They've won one in the last 24 months.
Yeah, but that's not the same.
By complete fluke. But there
exactly. Exactly. Like, it just is... What's going on? I mean, we spoke about this even last week from 20 years ago. Yeah. What goes on at Renault and Alpine that they kind of just constantly want to just half dip their foot in the pool?
Yeah. Every so often, every 3 or 4 years, they just decide they want to quit the sport, and then they don't. And it's like, okay, you're still here. Like when they basically... You remember we spoke about in the first iceberg a while back, where the changing brake bias automatically, which turned out to be a driver aid. And then they got disqualified from one race and then said, oh, we've been doing this for 5 years. It's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's crazy. But, I mean, this is probably a good thing for them. I mean, Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhaney obviously bring a lot of attention, as they have done with Wrexham. Obviously, they've got like massive sponsorship from America. They've got a documentary about them. We shall see if that happens for Alpine as well. That'd be quite interesting.
Oh, it'd just be French everywhere.
It would just be awful, but it'd be good. It would be entertainment, that's for sure.
I mean, why Alpine?
Yeah. Because surely, if I was going to buy a stake in any team right now, I'd probably, realistically, because you're obviously not going to buy into Red Bull or Mercedes because they probably don't need it.
Well, you can immediately cancel out, can't you? Mercedes, Red Bull, Ferrari. You would have thought you could have cancelled out Alpine in that as well.
Yeah.
And I guess McLaren?
Out of the rest, I would probably go Williams because you've got the best storyline there.
If it works.
If it works out.
Otherwise, you're just another investment group that's coming to Williams and not brought it off the rear of the field.
Yeah.
The thing is, and I know I've said this before so many times as well, I would have gone Haas.
Interesting.
You've got Gunther Steiner there already, who is a character. But why don't Haas? I mean, why aren't they still steering into that American stereotype? The most American thing I've still seen about Haas was Conor McGregor at the Monaco Grand Prix last year, and he's not even American.
Yeah.
I'm supporting my boys down at Haas. I think they're going to win. I can't do a Conor McGregor impression.
No, you really
the
can't.
point still stands.
Yeah. It's a strange decision from them, but I mean, people would have said the same when they bought Wrexham instead of a team in the Premier League or in the Championship, for instance. But fair play, all parties are probably happy with it.
Football is different, isn't it?
Yeah. But we'll see if it works out.
The thing is as well, and I always wonder this, like, I mean, you obviously you like Pierre Gasly. You're a Pierre Gasly fan, but I would never associate you as an Alpine fan.
No, because there's nothing to support there.
Like, apart from, like, especially now, unless you are French, does anyone support Alpine? And I mean that in the nicest way possible, but does anyone back
If you support Alpine, let us know.
Please do.
And let us know why. And
why?
Outside of supporting the drivers, because I think there's things to like about both drivers.
Put the comment in French.
Yes, please, I speak fluent, so do it. That's a lie.
You didn't even say I speak fluent in a fluent voice, to be honest, but yeah.
I was going to try and say that in French, and I just completely blanked on any words. I can't speak French, but I will Google Translate it for you. How about that?
Yes, we will put it through Google Translate and get very confused when people are calling us French swear words because we diss their beloved Alpine. I mean, it still feels a little bit, doesn't it? Like, was it Ligier back in the day, wasn't it? That were basically French government owned.
Or Renault are government owned in they're government funded.
Yeah.
So
yeah, a lot of big French companies are. I mean, it's just how France works, isn't it? I mean, again, going back to football, it's like Kylian Mbappe, isn't it? Like, why is the president getting involved in that?
Yeah, and Mbappe owns PSG because they were so desperate to keep him.
Yeah, madness. Absolute madness.
Yeah.
So there we go. It won't be long before
Pierre
Gasly owns Alpine.
Indeed. Next bit of, slight news. I don't know anything about this, but you seem to have seen an article saying Williams have... Oh, I don't know. You tell us about it. What's happened with Williams?
So, Williams, of course, we've heard a few rumours and rumblings before, haven't we? James Vowles obviously famously came out saying a few months back that some of the computer hardware down at Williams was from like 20 years ago. Funnily enough, back when they last legitimately won a Grand Prix. Now, of course,
2012 was an inside job.
It was. They have now allegedly wrote to the FIA looking for confirmation that they should be allowed to go over the budget cap because apparently they reckon they've got the money. Now, the big talk at the moment, of course, is, for a lot of people, the budget cap has brought the field closer together, but is that really just the regulations that have brought the cars closer together? What Williams are basically arguing now, of course, is it's all well and good everyone having $140 million to spend, but Ferrari, Mercedes, Red Bull have all still got in the region of $300 million worth of kit that they can use. So that, of course, is better manufacturing processes,
even
better
Aston
machinery. Even Aston Martin now, of course, have very much gone that way as well. So what Williams, I think, are trying to argue at the moment is, of course, they want to try and make their own investments, bring Williams back into the fray a bit more. But how is the budget cap still fair if those teams are able to do a lot of things cheaper and more effectively because they already spent the money beforehand? And of course, they've also then gone, well, of course they signed this budget cap because, of course, now they don't have to... They're not worried about the smaller teams still doing better than them. They're just worried about each other still, which, of course, is what's happened. Yeah,
because Williams and the likes of the smaller teams without all the infrastructure is going to be forever playing catch-up because they need 140 mil to run the team, which lives in nothing to build anything up infrastructure.
To get closer. They can get this close now because there's a budget cap in place, but they can't actually get to them unless they get lucky.
When Lawrence Stroll took over what was Racing Point at the time, they basically...
Well, it was Force India at the time.
Yeah, it was Force India, wasn't it? But they basically rushed through building a massive new factory with billions of pounds because they knew the budget cap was on the way, which, looking back, was a very smart investment. Because
so far,
there's no way you could do that now because you're using your budget cap money to run the team. And actually, investing the money before the budget cap, building up your factories, building up your processes, your infrastructure, and now he's reaping the rewards, certainly in 2023. We have to wait and remain to be seen if it's a flash in the pan or not. But I do feel for the teams without all those factories and infrastructures because where do they... Like, building a factory, a brand new factory, costs probably more than 140 mil itself. So you've almost you've got to take a year out of the sport if you want to stay under the budget cap to build a new factory, which is not really the point of the budget cap.
And I mean, of course, that's all well and good as well, hypothetically. And I know, obviously, we always kind of discount AlphaTauri from this because they're a weird little team anyway. But, your Haas's... I was about to say your Alfa Romeos, but of course that won't happen anymore because obviously they got the Audi money. Haas, apparently. Well, Haas and... Well, apparently Williams have now obviously got the money to do these upgrades.
Yeah.
Where's that money going to come from for Haas? Which now really worries me that it is basically just Haas that we're worried about.
Well, MoneyGram, they're very rich. They're a task sponsor.
But they're not going to give them hundreds of millions, are they?
No, probably not.
For the sake of it. Like, a lot of it, I'm sure, is still coming from Kevin and Nico's personal sponsors as well. I'm sure they still bring a fair old wad of cash for them. Very, very, yeah. It does almost feel in some ways like the budget cap brings more problems than solutions, because the budget cap would have been fantastic if teams had been given like homologated wind tunnels, homologated software.
It's like in a video game, if you all start with the same resource and you're given 140 mil and said, like, right,
do what you can
use
with
these
this
facilities and you make an F1 team. It would almost be like if the FIA owned all 10 factories.
Exactly.
And then they just rotate each year.
And this is obviously, again, the weird thing, of course, because that's not what Formula 1 has been about in the past. You know, Formula 1 was always...
ultimately.
Well, not even that, but of course it was designed as a sport that would then put tech onto road cars in the future. And of course now it's so far swung away from that and just about the entertainment. You know, is Formula 1 losing sight of itself, Jamie? This is the question we ask ourselves from time to time.
Has been since lap 57.
Yeah, it has. Exactly.
Yes.
Christian Horner. Not a fan of Nyck De Vries, we've learned today.
Yeah.
In what is going to be one of the most brutal news articles.
Funny. Much more brutal than this podcast, I'm afraid. But for some reason, Helmut Marko keeps getting platforms to express his opinion.
Which I've always thought is wrong.
It's just a bit weird, isn't it? It's like, what? Who keeps putting a microphone in front
I mean,
of his face?
he is one of those people that is like the Simpsons meme of senile old man yells at cloud.
Yeah. So this was literally today as we record this. What was the quote? It was like, do you ever disagree on driver appointments, I guess. Referring to Helmut Marko and Christian Horner. And he says, yes, the most recent one was Nyck De Vries, and so far Christian is being proven right. So not only has he said that Christian Horner doesn't like Nyck De Vries, or didn't want him in the car, he's now saying that Nyck De Vries doesn't deserve to be in the car as well.
Which, to be fair, Jamie, who kind of called that last year?
Oh, we did.
Exactly.
Italy,
We said
Monza
this
was
last
a flash
year.
in the pan completely.
Yeah. It was the perfect storm for Nyck De Vries.
Indeed.
And I get, of course, you know, there probably was an element for Red Bull of, well, let's just make a Dutch super team if it comes to it. And again, it is that other thing as well, and it's why, you know, we've banged on before that we want to see Mercedes and Ferrari bring a second team. But Red Bull can do that. Like, at the end of the day, it's not going to affect AlphaTauri long term. I mean, now obviously with Williams scoring that 7th place last weekend,
they are bottom.
AlphaTauri are now bottom, and I mean, unless they get a really good race,
they
could
probably
end up
won't
there.
finish. I don't think they'll finish bottom, to be honest.
Do you think they can overhaul 6 points?
They're
5 points?
Are they on 1?
They're on 2.
They're on 2.
I mean, Williams is now on 7.
Like, Tsunoda's been more consistent in terms of finishing position than Albon has been. It's just Albon's taken his opportunities a bit better. So
AlphaTauri have a better general car.
Yeah.
Williams just have a car that is very strong, basically around straights.
Yeah. I don't know. I think, like you just said, AlphaTauri have a better car technically, but it depends to be seen. It can, because you got to imagine at tracks like Monza and Spa, Albon probably has a good chance of scoring again. So, yeah. I don't know. Maybe they do finish bottom, but did we call that? I think one of us.
I think you called that in the pre-season as well.
Run it back.
I think I still said Williams last, and you said AlphaTauri.
Well, I hope they do come bottom then. There we go.
Brutal.
Yes, just prove me right, please. But I mean, Nyck De Vries was always. It's kind of a low risk appointment, really, wasn't it? It was never like this guy.
Well,
is
seemingly
next.
not as no risk as we thought.
Yeah. But it was never like this guy's going to be the next Sebastian Vettel, Max Verstappen type. It was
the thing is, again,
a stopgap.
Like Red Bull generally, like I think with the exception of Max and Seb, they've never really thought that about a lot of the drivers. It's kind of, you know, it's a bit like Daniel Ricciardo when he got in, bless him. Obviously, very, very talented driver, but I don't think, you know, they lumped him into HRT to begin with.
I think Ricciardo is probably the 3rd best that they've had.
Oh yeah, easily. I think it's a fairly
and there were
solid
years,
top 3.
There were at least 4 or 5 years when people were marking Ricciardo as the next champion. Like, he was highly rated, and rightly so at the time. Obviously, it all fell apart recently, but it's unfair to say that he's not been rated. I think Verstappen and Vettel, you could see were special drivers. The likes of Ricciardo, Sainz, I guess even Gasly to an extent, you can kind of see they're good, but they're not that top level.
I would put Ricciardo closer to Seb and Max than I would to Sainz and Gasly in terms of skill. Ricciardo was in the horrible position, of course, he came into Red Bull
Wrong time, really.
Well, no, he came into Red Bull at the perfect time. Got the jump on Seb, who clearly never, and we get it, a lot of people like Seb, never properly adjusted to the turbo hybrids. He could not drive with the torque that these cars provided. And of course, Ricciardo then was the next big thing. He was going to be Red Bull's path back to the top in the same way Seb had been up against Mark Webber beforehand. Ricciardo was the future. And then, of course, a 17-year-old pops up.
Yeah.
And of course, and I think it was still unfair on Ricciardo. And I know we've spoken about this before, but full well he left Red Bull because they weren't going to give him a chance to fight for a world championship. That team was now being completely sculpted around Max. And I think because Ricciardo, and again, obviously he was going up against an 18 or a 19-year-old, but the fact that he was still matching him as that team chemistry was shifting away from him, he knew that was, he was not doing anything wrong at that time, but it was just being taken away from him. And I think Ricciardo was absolutely the kind of driver that wasn't willing to put up with that.
Yeah.
But also, on the other hand, I'm sure there's probably a part of him going, if they ran an organisation a bit more like Mercedes, where you
can fight.
You like to give stick towards Hamilton having push over a teammate in Bottas, but there was very, very rarely times where it wasn't like the car was just set up for Lewis and things like that.
Oh yeah, not at all.
You felt both drivers going into every season were given an equal shot. It was just Lewis was a better driver.
Yeah, and even Hamilton-Rosberg dynamic, you saw that showed it more so because they were more equal.
Exactly. Well, yeah, okay.
Well, Rosberg's definitely better than Bottas. Come on.
Oh yeah, yeah.
That's what I mean. Like, it was more of a fight, even though Hamilton was probably better over the course of 3 years. They were definitely closer in talent than Hamilton and Bottas were.
Yes, of course.
But yeah, Ricciardo probably got out at the right time. I can't remember how he got down this rabbit hole. I think it was Nyck De Vries. Yes.
Yeah.
So he's probably
talking about Red Bull signings.
He's probably not gonna. He'll probably see out the season, but not much beyond that. And
do you still reckon he will? Do you?
Speaking of Ricciardo, he might be the way back in. Alpha Tauri, who's the go full circle.
Well, this is just what I was thinking. I almost said something really stupid then, because I was gonna say they may as well give him up until the Belgian Grand Prix, let him do what is effectively his home race, and then drop him. But of course, we've got a Dutch Grand Prix now, so that's pointless.
One race before his home race.
Yeah, which would be even worse, you'd argue.
Yeah.
I mean, this is such a weird thing, isn't it? Because let's be fair, we don't know who Red Bull are going to, whether Nick is going to be able to get to the end of the year and then be done. Could they then instead do a system where, Nick gets a few drives on weekends where Lawson hasn't got Super Formula, put him in the car, or do you then give Ricciardo a couple of opportunities, let him race in Vegas, that sort of thing?
That'd be so dumb.
It would be absolutely wild.
I think, if I'm honest, if I had to call it right now, I think De Vries races every race for the rest of the season.
Okay.
They put Ricciardo in the car for 24, and if he does well against Tsunoda, Ricciardo goes in for Perez in 25.
What happened to Perez? Retires,
his
goes somewhere else, goes Aston Martin?
Up at the end of 24.
Alonso retires and he goes to Aston Martin?
Potentially. Could go back to Aston. Could go down to
Is that a third time? No. It was Hulkenberg that went back to Force India,
Yeah. But I just think Ricciardo would probably take being the second driver at Red Bull again now, even though he didn't want to take that in 2018, of course.
I think he would I think as well there wouldn't be the pressure on Red Bull's side now of completely gearing everything to Max either.
Oh yeah, because
I wonder if he'd be able to have a fairer fight. I mean, maybe that's the downfall of Max Verstappen. Probably. He probably would, to be completely right now. But I don't see it as an absolute impossible that he could get back to fighting Max in equal machinery.
I think it would be impossible. Ricciardo's 33 now.
Yeah.
So by the time he's back in Red Bull in 25, according to my narrative, he's 35.
35, yes.
And Max Verstappen's 27 in his absolute prime.
27, couple more World Championships on the board.
Yeah.
Starting to think about what else he wants to do.
Yeah, that's the thing. If Verstappen's not pulling our legs and his retirement threats in 2028 are actually real, then of course Ricciardo's suddenly number one at Red Bull, and that's perfect.
It's so weird, and maybe it's because I'm not a fan of Max, but I can genuinely see a world where he goes, I've won 4 World Championships. Because again, the end of the day for Max, of course, he's been very, very clever with this. Obviously, a lot of people are going, he has absolutely, and I'm not going to say he hasn't at all, he has absolutely got the potential to break basically every record that Formula One's ever had.
If he wanted to, yeah.
If he wanted to. But that relies on 2 things. 1, he came into the sport as a teenager. He was 17. He might be able to do that simply for the fact he could have a career that spans more than 20 years. Like, if he goes up to how old Alonso is now, he could have a 25-year Formula One career, which is mad. And 2, it's whether Red Bull can keep providing him with the cars to dominate.
That's the thing.
I think Max is very clever in knowing he does not want his reputation tarnished just because, if he physically can't get to 7 world titles because he's just not given 7 cars good enough, or he can't get to however many wins Lewis Hamilton ends up with, and I really hope it's not 103 before his retirement. That, I think, is why Max is trying to be very careful with this. And, of course, the other fact is, he started Formula 1 at 17.
Yeah.
Perhaps he does want to do other things with his life. It would not surprise me if he thought, you know what, I fancy going for that Triple Crown. If I've got 4 World Championships at that point, I've already proved myself in Formula 1, let's go match Graham Hill's record. Let's go do IndyCar or Le Mans or, race with my dad or just sit around and play FIFA for the rest of his life.
Do it.
Why not?
Yeah. I mean, I get the feeling he's trying to pretend like F1 doesn't own him.
He likes to pretend that he doesn't care, and full well he must go to bed every night trying to calculate, if I win this many races for this many seasons, it'll be this Grand Prix where I match Lewis.
Well, even
he goes to bed.
The 2021 season where the whole year he was like, I don't really care. Championship doesn't change my life. And then when he won it was crazy.
Started throwing that away towards the end, didn't he? For someone who didn't care.
And then when he won it, he went absolutely mental.
Exactly.
Of course
he cares. He does. Of course he cares. Like, every single driver cares. But Max tries to play it off in a way that I don't think either of us buy, do we? And I think, sadly, a lot of people do.
Yeah.
And it's very, very clever by him as well. Don't get me wrong.
It is.
None of us are buying it, mate. Like, you care.
Yeah.
You care a lot.
Yeah. We have ranted about Red Bull.
We have ranted and rambled. Red Bull are a great filler at the moment. It's fantastic every single week.
A lot.
Is it time for a quiz?
It is, and it is my turn, and I'm going to do the old Uno reverse card on you and give you one of your classics that you keep asking me all season. So, just the Austrian Grand Prix this weekend. No Styrian Grand Prix.
No Styrian Grand Prix or anything, no?
So, you are going to you take us back as far as you can go.
Oh, no.
In Austrian Grand Prix winners. And I will help you when there was a gap in time if you get that far.
Yes, that's fine. So just Austrian Grand Prix.
Just the Austrian Grand Prix, starting with 2022.
I was about to say 2023 Charles Leclerc, but of course that's this year. 2022 Charles Leclerc.
Yes.
2021 Max Verstappen.
Mm-hmm.
2020 Valtteri Bottas.
Doing well.
2019 Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
Sorry, I panicked then because you were saying 2018 Max Verstappen.
Mm-hmm.
2017 that was Valtteri Bottas.
It was.
Like, I honestly panicked then. I
that
said
was
that
jump
with far
start
more
that you got away
confidence. Yes, well, it wasn't a jump start though, was it? That was the thing.
That was.
Absolutely wild. 2016, Lewis Hamilton, the only Austrian Grand Prix he's won.
Yeah, and he shouldn't have.
Clearly you don't check my channel, Jamie, because I literally did a quiz about this today.
Oh, no.
2015 Rosberg, 2014 Rosberg.
Then there was a big gap.
Then there was a big gap. 2002?
03 was the
it was 03,
previous.
Was it? I mean, this one's difficult. Because, of course, 2003 was an absolute wild season as well. I mean, I've got a sense. I mean, let's be fair. It could be either of the McLarens, Williams, or Ferraris. So I've kind of got to take a punt here, haven't I?
Hello.
I don't know why, and I know you can tell me this is wrong because I know it's going to be, but I'm saying Juan Pablo Montoya.
That is incorrect.
Yeah,
sadly.
knew it. Was it Michael?
It was Michael Schumacher.
Oh, I should have gone with a safe.
You should have gone safe. He only won it from Raikkonen by 3 seconds. Montoya.
I thought you were going to say he only won it from like P14 or something. It was like one of his best drives that I completely forgot about.
He won it from pole. Dead. Montoya retired from 3rd on the grid. I think that was the Oh Dear year, though. So he did something.
I thought that was 2001.
Or maybe that was 01. It was 01 or 03, yeah. I mean,
like
you got as far as I usually do.
Like something with horns.
Yeah, a horse with horns, yeah.
A horse with horns.
You got as far as I usually do, but...
Yeah, exactly, I'm impressed with 2003.
There was no race for 10 years in the middle of that. But
Still got back to 2003, mate. I'm taking it. Yeah, no, you did make me chuckle with that, because like I said, I literally did a quiz today about which year Verstappen didn't win the Belgian, the Austrian
so you've done
Grand
your
Prix.
research, you've been brushing
And
up.
Tomorrow's quiz is which year did Hamilton win the Austrian Grand Prix?
Yeah, won it by turning into Rosberg at the second corner.
I don't think he did, though, did he? I think Rosberg tried to go backwards around the Österreich ring from years beforehand. Two of the closest ever Formula One circuit locations. Fun fact.
Which two?
The Red Bull Ring and the Zolt Ring, or whatever it was called.
The Zeltweg Airfield?
Yes.
Oh, sweet.
Literally across the road. To
Wow.
the closest Formula One tracks in terms of location. Can you name the track closest to a current Formula One track in the 2023 season?
What, a track in use?
A former track and
Closest.
a current track.
I mean, the UK is quite small. I mean, Donington must be quite close to Silverstone. Is that right?
No.
No.
This is such. It's such a stupid question, Jamie, because you're gonna hate me when you hear
I
the
bet
answer.
it's I Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas.
Yes, Caesar's Palace in Vegas, 400 yards.
So I've done as well as you have on this week's quiz.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Right.
Predictions.
I think then. Yeah, last thing we've got to do then is predictions, isn't it?
Which we didn't update last week, so obviously Canada we didn't bother doing.
Yeah, we didn't do a Canada post show, so I think we both scored 6 points though.
We did.
Which Jamie was very unhappy about.
Because I got the correct podium, but Hamilton and Alonso the wrong way around.
Yeah.
Which
So
I
I only got
afterwards.
Yes, yeah. You were adamant you got the first perfect weekend.
I thought I'd got 8 out of 8, and then we went and watched it back, and I hadn't. So
no, exactly. Fun times. So it's 30 to Jamie, 25 to myself then.
No.
Of course, we have got
31-26.
Oh, sorry, I can't add 6, can I? I was adding 5 to both. You've got an extra 2 points this weekend, of course, because it is a sprint race, Jamie.
We're not doing sprint pole. We don't care.
Are we not doing sprint
I don't
pole?
think we did sprint pole before.
I don't think we did sprint pole last time, but do we want to do sprint pole? We can change
not.
things up, Jamie.
Let's not.
So we're not doing sprint pole.
No.
Okay. So this makes things even more complicated then, because
It
we're
also
only
might
predicting
rain
some of the
again.
sessions.
After
Yeah, but
years
we
of
say
it
that
never
every
raining
week.
in F1,
Yeah,
it's now raining all the time.
apparently. 2013 didn't have a single wet race, did it?
No, they did start in Inters in Malaysia, but it didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't
This is a
raining.
random fact for you all as well, in case
Yeah.
you wanted to know.
Yeah.
Right. So 8 points then up for grabs 10 points, sorry, up for grabs this weekend. So we're going pole Saturday morning, sprint win, and top 3. Correct?
Yes. It is actually
Wonderful.
due to rain a little bit, especially on Saturday.
Okay.
So
Okay.
could be an interesting one.
It's not going to be, though. Max. Sergio. I mean, do I just do the same 3 as I did last week? It scored me good points. Yeah, let's go for it. Max, Sergio Lewis.
That's so dead. That's
so dead.
boring. I'm
So
gonna
dead.
mix it up.
Okay.
Nico
Hülkenberg.
I'll go Max on proper pole.
Yeah.
I'll go Fernando Alonso to win the sprint race.
Okay.
Wet race in
Okay.
Austria. You heard it here first.
I like
Max to have
this.
issues in the sprint quali.
I
And
like
then-
this.
Max win on Sunday
Oh, of course.
with Alonso P2. And
Okay.
do I throw a Stroll in there? No.
Oh, Stroll won't get a podium this year, surely.
I think he'll get one at some point, surely.
No, the thing is, like, Alonso's got a podium on all but one race so far this year. Stroll's never even looked... Well, he's only ever looked close to it once, and that was as he flew off into the gravel trap at Albert Park.
Yeah. He looked close once for about 2 seconds.
For all of 30
Max
yards.
win, Alonso second, George Russell.
George Russell?
Almost said
George
Leclerc.
Russell.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's Max, Perez, Lewis, Max, Alonso, Max... Alonso...
Russell.
Okay. Interesting. Has George got a podium this year?
I think...
Does he have one? Spain. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I thought I had seen him with the trophy. No.
But Ocon has. That's funny.
Yeah. Bizarre, isn't it? Utterly bizarre. Actually, did Sainz get... No. Did
Sainz is the only driver to qualify in the top 5 every race this season.
He is. He's been brutally consistent qualifier.
Just always...
She was always fifth.
Basically. Alonso has the highest average grid position as well.
Not anymore. Max is toppled that again.
He's literally doing a 2012, but Red Bull's just too fast.
I think Max has toppled that again now.
Oh, is he?
I think he's brought his average just below Alonso's again.
That was an old stat from before Canada.
Yeah, it was, exactly.
Yeah.
But there we go then. I mean, it's been quite a rambly show as always, but it's what you guys have come to know and love from ourselves. Thank you all as always so much for listening. We're going to be trying to do a bit more with the show over the coming weeks and months. So pre-warning for all of you, or for the... Sorry, let me just double check on the numbers. Currently, 45 of you that are on the Knowing Wheel podcast clips channel, in air quotes. We're going through now. This is kind of like a bit of a PSA that I'm sure we'll mention in the future. The plan we're looking at doing for 2024 and onwards is potentially shifting the show away from the main channel and just it exclusively going up over there. So at the moment, we're trying to get the entire archive of Knowing Wheel up onto that second channel. So, if you do obviously enjoy the show each week, you are listening each week, it would be greatly appreciated if you would drop us a sub over there. There's a link to it down in the description below. But I will put out forewarning when all 120 episodes are ready to go, because the plan is to just dump them all public in one night.
Yeah.
Which is going to be
stay off
quite
YouTube
difficult.
At 3 a.m.
Stay off YouTube at 3 a.m. one Tuesday morning, because your sub feed's going to be full. You have 120 episodes of your favourite Formula 1 show. But yeah, we're working on a few little bits and pieces that we're trying to introduce behind the scenes. But thank you all so much as always for listening. If you have enjoyed, please do make sure you leave a like, get yourself subscribed. Like we said, follow us on all the various social media bits. And yeah, we'll be back next week then. We've got a double race weekend, haven't we, Jamie? We've got Austria. We've then got to do Austria post-show before then we dive in with a Silverstone pre-show as well. So all good fun, and hopefully you'll come back and listen again.